Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Tuesday Talk. Today we are speaking with the lawyering professors and Leah. If you would all like to introduce yourselves, and I will just, can we do alphabetical order? Does that work by first name?
Want to just call us out? Why don't you just
Sure.
tell us when we're up?
Professor Rosenberg.
Hi. Do you want me to introduce myself?
Yes, please. And then what you teach at the law school and any other interesting information you would like to share about yourself.
All right. Okay, so I am one of the lawyering professors. I also teach employment law and some upper level skills classes. For example, I teach in our deposition skills workshop. I've been at KU Law since 2005. I'm also an alumna. And before I came to law school, I practiced management side labor and employment law in Kansas City. And I live in the Kansas City area in the suburbs. I've been hunkering down with my 3 teenagers and my husband and my aging dog.
Awesome.
So that's how things are right now.
Thank you. Professor Keller.
Sure. Hi, I'm Pam Keller. I'm also one of the lawyering professors, and I've been in the program since it started, which is now over 20 years. So it's a long time. I also oversee and direct parts of the law school's moot court program, and oversee or direct the judicial field placement. I also am a KU Law grad and have also been hunkering down with my relatively new puppy. So he's less than a year old. So since I'm not on mute, he might rise up and make a few sounds. And with my kids as well, but the house is quiet today. So the only interruption should be the puppy, but he's pretty much out right now. So.
Thank you. Professor Watts.
Hi, I'm Shawn Watts. I'm the newest member of the lawyering team, and it's a really honor to teach with these ladies. Professor Six, who you don't see here, the 3 of them put together an awesome program, which is great that it's awesome because you're all going to be stuck going through it in your first year. So it's really good.
Long time.
Program. I run our Tribal Law and Government Center and our school's mediation clinic as well.
Awesome. And then Dean Terranova.
Hi, I'm Leah Terranova. I'm the Assistant Dean for Academic and Student Affairs. I also sit on the Diversity Committee with Professor Watts and Professor Six, and Bree, sorry. And I'm the co-faculty advisor for our Outlaws and Allies and our first generation professionals student group here at the law school. You will see me in connection with lots of wellness activities that we have planned and some fun social activities as well as we welcome you into the law school. I am not a KU Law grad, but a transplant from New York City for about 10 years now. I've been in Kansas. Yeah.
Perfect. And you have a dog as well, correct? Does everyone on the call have a dog?
I do. He too is sleeping for now. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yes, I did just get a puppy, what will be 2 weeks tomorrow. No, 2 weeks Thursday.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Or my condolences.
So I guess we can just jump right in. I know that when I started law school, I did not know what the term lawyering meant. It just popped up on my schedule. So can anyone explain, whoever wants to, what is lawyering?
You to jump in? Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I'll take it because we had to come up with a name for our course. So for a long time, it was just lawyering, but we changed it to lawyering skills because we thought that better reflected what we were trying to convey, which is that it's the most important course in the law school because it tells you it's all the skills you need to know to be a lawyer, right? Well, a lot of professors will argue that their class is the most important, but lawyering skills, the term is meant to sort of encompass I think most people, when they go to law school, they know they're going to learn about property law, or they know they're going to learn about the law. But lawyers take the law and have to solve clients' problems. And so I think there's just sort of a group of skills that we lump together and talk about lawyering, the work that lawyers do, and also a little bit about how lawyers think. So it's sort of a way to think about being a lawyer separate from just knowing the law. And I think a lot of students that come to law school, really most people, because every time if I tell someone I'm a law professor, they say, well, what law do you teach? And I have to say, well, I teach lawyering, and then they want to know what that is. So it's not obvious, but lawyers solve clients' problems. Lawyers advise people, and there's a whole set of skills that you need to do that. So we talk about lawyering skills like writing, reasoning, and then we get to research, and then other core lawyering skills that lawyers have to have, like negotiating, engaging in a mediation, in oral advocacy, being able to communicate your points orally, understanding how to interact with clients and even interview clients or do fact investigations. So there's kind of a whole bucket of skills that lawyers have other than just knowing the law. That's the way I think about it anyway.
Does anyone have anything to add to that?
The only thing I'll add is that our main goal for the course, so the course is a 2-semester course. So you'll see it on your schedule as Lawyering Skills 1 in the fall and Lawyering Skills 2 in the spring. But there's meant to be some continuity, right? There's meant to be building of, we start at the beginning and we sort of build and build and build. And our pedagogical goal for those 2 semesters is that students should have a kit of skills ready to go for their first work experience in the summer after your first year. So after your first year, many students seek their first work experience, and sometimes that's paid work at a firm, and sometimes that's in a clinic at the law school where you're helping real clients. It's just in a clinically supervised environment. So there's all different kinds of first work experiences appropriate for people who've just finished their first year of law school. And our main objective for you in the course is that you should be prepared to go and do that first work experience, and so that you have the foundation to build on to keep building your skills until the point where you're ready to practice without supervision years down the road.
Great. So I think you touched on this, Professor Rosenberg, but it is a 2-semester class, correct?
Yes.
Do you have the same professor both semesters? Do we know that yet? Are you in the same group of students? How does that work?
Typically, no. It can happen that you could have the same semester, the same professor for 2 semesters, but our goal would be that you have 2 different professors. And I think the way the Lawyering Skills program is set up class-wise is sort of to run like our small section program, so that between you have one small section and then you have your lawyering skills section. Typically they're the same students, not always, but most of the time. And the idea is that you have at KU Law School, one of the special things that we have is you get to have smaller group class sessions, and lawyering skills will be one of those. But we do want you to have different professors so that you get different feedback in each of those semesters. The goals of the course, and we teach in a coordinated way, so the substantive material is the same for all students in the first year program. We all work to decide what that program is. All the large assignments are coordinated, so everyone in the class is doing the same thing, but we like to have students engage with more professors so that you have more people at the law school that you can connect with, that you might see as mentors, that you can seek out for advice later. I mean, there's just sort of lots of reasons that we want you to meet more and more professors.
And as I believe everyone on this call knows, we have the entering student program in school starts for you all on the 20th, which is very exciting, of August. And part of that is going to be working through getting ready to jump into the lawyering skills class. Can anyone explain the types of things that the students should be prepared for during orientation, what they have to look forward to?
Well, we've been working out. That's the problem with having done it for 20 years. I'm like happy to talk about what we do in lawyering. So Shawn, jump in anytime, but the orientation program, or what we lovingly call Lawyering Skills Bootcamp, not that you care much about the history, but it helps, I think, tell what our goal is and tells you what the purpose of it is. So Lawyering Skills Bootcamp is part of orientation, or the entering students program. And what we used to have the material that we teach in our bootcamp actually part of the first couple of classes of lawyering skills. And what we realized was that it would be better for the students to have that before they entered their other classes. So bootcamp has two goals: one, to get you ready for lawyering, but really to get you as ready as possible to study the law and to be successful in all of your other classes. So it's trying to kind of bridge the type of learning you may have had before, because everyone will come from wonderfully different backgrounds, and try to get you focused on the process, the thinking and reasoning process that lawyers go through, and help you transition to that, to getting ready for your law school classes.
Does anyone have anything to add? Okay. Is there anything that you all can think of that would be helpful for students to have physically before they start lawyering class, besides, of course, their books?
Well, I don't know what information the incoming 1Ls have gotten about things like software, or that I don't know what advice they get. Can you give us some sense of what they're told?
Right. Yes. So if I believe that it had already gone out in one of our bi-weekly emails about the types of computer systems that you can look forward to, and we also talk about it in the Facebook group. But if we will continue to pump out that information bi-weekly, I believe Steve Friedman will be sending out a very lengthy email at the end of this week with a lot of information in it. But basically, there are certain components that we recommend, especially since everything is online right now. So be on the lookout for that, specifically for your internet provider, making sure you have certain upload and download speeds, which I can tell you personally, mine is at the bare minimum. So just look at that and make sure that wherever you are going to be spending your time, if you are doing Zoom calls with people, that those are the types of speeds that you have through your internet provider. And then as far as the computer systems go, obviously something that you can use, that you can port around with you is helpful. But Microsoft Word, I believe, if please anyone jump in, that's what I believe.
I recommend to my students that they get used to creating and editing and producing documents in Word, because the vast majority of law firms and legal employers, government employers, corporations, not all of them, but most of them use the Microsoft Office suite of software. So you're going to be using MS Word, you're going to be using Excel, maybe PowerPoint at work. And, Microsoft Word is best learned by doing. It's not intuitive. It's got a lot of problems, but the best way you can prepare yourself to be ready to work is to use it and actually create your documents in it and just get used to it. And so I know that a lot of students are used to using something else like Google Docs or whatever. And I would recommend that you get away from the Google Docs or the open source word processing and move to MS Word, also PowerPoint and Excel, so that you get used to using those programs.
And a note specifically for Mac users. And so, guys, I've been a Mac user for 25 years. I would never use a PC. In fact, the school wouldn't buy me a Mac. They insisted they buy me a PC. So it's like a $3,000 Spotify player now. I just use my laptop. But I will say this: Apple's suite of software for office stuff is good, and you may be a Mac user using Pages. You, especially if you've been using Pages for years, have to get on Word. And the problem with Pages is that it's so good that it makes you think you can use it just like Word. And the problem is it's off just enough that when you convert it to a Word document to email to one of your professors or to submit online, or you convert it to a PDF, or God forbid you don't convert it and then I have to convert it on my end, the formatting is off a little bit. Not 100% of the time, but enough of the time that it's going to bite you. And there's no reason to lose points for having done something perfectly correctly and just the software formatting ended up hurting
you. And that's like a thing, like it'll cost you points on a lawyering assignment, but then at work, it will cost you hours of sleep and misery as you try to get a document ready to go to file and like, how do I fix the margins? Right. So yeah.
Brianna,
there was a question in the chat.
Can the students buy the software really cheap? Isn't it? Do
I
they have the same deal we do? Because
I think they do, right? I think KU offers the.
So I copied the link that I was able to just pull up very quickly on the KU website, and it's like new to KU and software, and they do provide free and discounted software. And under the free software tab, it says Microsoft Office. And I know that
for either Mac or PC users, you either can get in both or almost interchangeable, really.
So, and if you have any issues with that, just let me know and I can get you pointed into the right direction I am not a tech person. So if it doesn't work for me, I have to call somebody else. But I am happy to direct you to that individual if it's not working for you.
I think it's pretty easy to download.
Yeah, well, I figured it out, so hopefully.
Me too.
The other thing that I don't know, it's really just a suggestion and it's very personal to me. Because we don't know what kind of access you all are going to have to the communal printing in Green Hall, you might be happier owning a home printer if you don't already have one. It's really up to you, but I find a lot of you're doing so much reading of cases, and although they are all available to read electronically, and you're going to be doing your research using electronic databases, many students tell me that they have a much easier time reading the printed material. Additionally, when you're creating a document that's worth points, you may find it a good practice to take that document through at least one proofread round in hard copy rather than just on a screen, because you'll catch typos and errors and stuff in hard copy that you might miss if you're just looking at it on a screen. I'm not really willing to just say, like, I'm not like Dr. Nair, like you have to have a printer and you have to be able to print at home, because I don't really print at home that much, but I think that depending on, your own work habits and stuff, and it's at least worth considering, because Green Hall has communal printers, but I don't know what the access is going to be like under the current conditions.
Yeah, I would just add to what Professor Rosenberg saying, that there will be a little bit more reduced capacity to the building. So accessing printers will be a little bit more challenging. And for those of you who may be in a financial situation where COVID-19 has maybe impacted your ability to afford a printer for yourself, and I know an email went out to all of you about some financial assistance for software and for just the electronics that you're going to need, Wi-Fi, laptop, the rest of it. If you're in a situation where you need help, there are some funds available. So I would say that printers would also fall under that umbrella. So just reach out to Bree, to myself, and we can connect you with the available resources.
Correct. And I think that, and this is from purely personal perspective, you will learn, in my opinion, how you work best as you go through law school. So at the beginning of law school, I didn't print things and read them in hard copy, but towards the end, I found that that was really helpful for me personally. But I had classmates that were just using the electronics. So it's really whatever works best for you. And you'll figure that out as you go along. So
I think it is visually, but there are other things you can do on the computer now to change it. I mean, you can listen to it. That's what I've been doing all summer because I've had a non-functioning printer and I relied on it so much that I've tried to use the summer to just not rely on it and try to see what my students have to do. And, you can come up with other ways. So I guess it is kind of an experimentation thing, but I think for those of us who teach writing, because we haven't talked about this too much, but lawyering skills is heavy writing course. You are writing a lot. And those of us who write a lot know that we can't catch our own, it's hard for our brains to catch our own mistakes just naturally. You tend to read what you think you wrote, not what you wrote, so you miss typos. But on the screen, it's even more difficult to catch errors. But like I said, I've tried to be creative and now I just listen to it on my computer and that jumps out really quickly when I've skipped a word. So there are ways to get around it. So it wouldn't be something you'd have to have the first day. I think a lot of lawyers do find that they do rely on being able to tactically read something just because the level of care in your writing that's expected as sort of the number one form of communication for new lawyers is basically your writing, whether that be through emails, through written analysis and memoranda, and it becomes the way that you prove to people your reasoning is sound is through writing as a new lawyer. So there is a greater emphasis, I think, on polish than may have been in some of your other, other educational backgrounds.
awesome. I'm really glad we were able to talk about the technology aspect of it. Thank you, everyone. And then also, of course, things to buy. You probably need like paper, pen,
Yeah.
like
you need really good pens. Listen, there are no bigger office supply nerds than the people on this screen. Like you could just embrace it. Like just do, I have a favorite kind of Post-it note, right? Like
color coding your certain books and pages. Some professors do not allow you to have a laptop in the classroom, so I don't know if that's been made clear. So you will need, even if you're thinking, what would I need a pen for? I'm going to type everything on my computer. I'm not one of them, but there are many law school professors that, a good number anyway, a significant number, that do not let laptops in the classroom because of the studies suggesting that students learn better when they don't have them. Especially the type of learning we're asking you to do. So that's, I guess, a word of warning if that hasn't been in the weekly emails.
No, it hasn't. I see Professor Watts did you raise your hand? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those that doesn't let them in the classroom. And the irony is this: if the classes were bigger, I would probably allow laptops in the classroom. Like if I had a class of 60 or 100, surely 10 or 15 people would be paying enough attention to participate in the discussion But in a class of 20, those chances are pretty low. And I can't speak fully for the other lawyering professors, but I can say my guess is that they're the same as me, which is the classes rely heavily on student discussion and contribution. And if the students aren't being active, that's just me standing there waiting for you to say something, and I'm going to get pretty testy pretty quick.
We had another question. Will we need to bring our computer to boot camp?
Probably.
If that's the way you want to take notes, you should. But if you can take, because you should take some notes during the Lawyering Skills Bootcamp. But if you, the other reason it might be helpful to have it nearby is we will kind of walk you through at times some of the, we have a Blackboard site. There'll be Westlaw and Lexis reps possibly coming in at some point, or we might be walking you through different technology we might be using. So it might be helpful to have it. But you could certainly get by substantively without it, I think. If you have it, you might as well bring it. Don't you think? What do you think, Joyce and Shawn?
I think it's not a bad idea to have it with you to be prepared, because
but if Professor Watts is running it, he'll make you shut it.
Yeah.
If he's running your class at that moment, you'll have to shut it anyway, but you can still have it.
The only thing that I'm sure you'll need it for is for the lawyering part of boot camp is when we try to introduce you to things like, how a Zoom class might run or how a Teams class might run. And we're still working on those plans, but that is the goal, is to try to do that. And so if you've got the technology in front of you, then you can follow along and try things out while we're doing it. But even if you didn't, you could probably just watch and then figure it out later.
And I know that part of orientation will be introducing you to the research websites like LexisNexis and like Westlaw. And that is usually easier if you have your computer with you. So when they're talking about, okay, and then you can go to this tab and look at this, you can actually do it as someone who learns by doing. I think a lot of lawyers are like that. So it's easier to do that if you have your computer, and then they'll give you codes and things like that as well. Yeah. We have another question from Doug. Will lawyering boot camp for sure be in person, or should we stay tuned? The plan is to be in person. So we're still working on separating everyone, but the goal is for there to be 4 groups, and it's going to be half day in person, half day online for the days of orientation / entering student program.
And Bree, for the folks that might live far away or wish to stay in the building for the portion of the boot camp that's going to be online for their cohort, will there be spaces in the library and in the building that they can use to do the online portion in the school, or will they go home?
So if you are, like, we built in times for you to be able to go back. If you are living in Kansas City, there's about a 45 to an hour time slot if you're going home before another online session, just to build that in. Because personally, I live in Kansas City, so I know that it takes a while to get back. And regarding the specific spaces, I think that's something we're still determining, of specific spaces of where those would be. What time in the morning will it begin on the 20th? I believe it is, I would have to look at the schedule, but I think it's around 8.
Yep.
But again, it's separated into groups. So depending on what group you are, because of social distancing and keeping the group separate. So you might not start at 8.
Right.
You might start at 9.
Half will start at 8.
Right.
And then it flip-flops. So it goes, half will be in the morning on Thursday and Friday, and half will be in the afternoon in person on Thursday and Friday, and then the afternoon folks switch to the morning and vice versa for Monday and Tuesday. So you'll have a little bit of both.
So we spread 8 a.m. around.
Right. And the synchronous online portion, the online portions where you would have to be physically sitting at your computer at a certain time, there's a smaller number of those. I mean, so if we say you have about 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours in person, 3 to 4 hours online, then some of that online portion is not synchronous, meaning we're not on a Zoom session where you have to be online at a certain time. Only a small portion of that would be synchronous, and the rest would be watching videos or doing online tutorials or work that you could fit into your schedule more flexibly. Right, Brianna?
Yes. Trying to make it as easy as possible, but also give you that in-person experience. So.
Someone asked, is there a timeline for knowing which lawyering professor you will have? So I'll take the heat for delaying that a little bit. Obviously this year with the registrar's office or the enrollment, it's delayed just because of all of the problems with scheduling right now and knowing classrooms and who's going to be where at different times. But with lawyering skills also, you won't necessarily know the professor right away because we'll still be doing some moving around with students probably as late as we can to account probably, we're even thinking about accounting for students who might be fully online and for personal reasons can't decide they can't be in person at the law school. I mean, we're just trying to figure out how to make the sections work as best as possible from a learning standpoint. So we won't really be able to tell you your lawyering professor until the time when the enrollment is all working.
I think Bridget just asked if she's going to be stuck with me or not.
Oh, do you know her?
No, I saw the name.
Oh, she's one. Of the laptop issue, you think?
But I will say, we use the same syllabus. All the lawyering profs, we use the exact same syllabus, we use the same books, you have the same assignments. So, you're gonna be looking at a different person, but we're pretty much in lockstep. Right. And actually, there is one more thing that I always tell 1Ls they need to think about getting. It's find yourself a good basic English style manual, like for writing. Like I like Strunk and White, The Elements of Style. It's a classic, and it's like $8. But it doesn't. There's lots of. You need something to look up questions of grammar and punctuation and those basics. And there are certainly lots of internet resources for that. And when you begin law school, like on our Blackboard site, we post a bunch of those links and stuff. But it's not a bad idea to just have a desk reference available that you can look things up. Because lawyers are professional writers. Like Professor Keller said, everything we do is in writing. Even lawyers whose jobs are heavy on court appearances still do everything in writing first, before they go to court. And so, nobody really expects you to just memorize, whatever, like the comma rules or all those little details. Like you don't have to, but you do have to get them right. So it's a good idea to have a good style manual at your disposal.
As the non-lawyering professor, I will say that I was an English major before going to law school, and I thought for sure lawyering would be the easiest class. And it was not, precisely for that reason, because I was an English major. It's such a different way of writing and articulating your ideas. And so I think it's what Professor Rosenberg said is really spot on. Like, you just kind of have to you have to approach this in such a different way and really rethink the way you are a writer. It's very different from anything you've done before.
I was thinking that is so true. English, like folks who majored in English, I think sometimes find it the toughest because they had such high expectations, where students from like engineering are like, well, I knew I wouldn't be able to write. Journalism students actually can make the transition to the type of writing that legal writing is a little bit easier. But it's okay. I was an art history major, and we definitely didn't translate either. So, we'll get everybody there. It all works out. Aspen's Guide to Legal Writing, is that the name of it, Joyce? Is a good one.
Handbook for legal writers.
That's good. It's more expensive than the one you mentioned. And then Brian Garner's Red Book is also good. I don't like it. Yeah, a lot of legal writing professors don't always love Brian Garner stuff, but I do. It's good. So
I just don't like the Red Book. He has a lot of books that I love, but I don't like the Red Book particularly. But it's okay.
Lawyers always like it, so
Yeah.
And regarding the books, since they are supposed to be the same for every professor, correct? That is what everyone has told me. Okay.
Yeah.
For lawyering skills? Yeah.
Right. So I know that it's frustrating because since you don't have your class schedule, we can't give you all of the books that you will need yet, because we don't know some of the professors are different and they have a different book, even if it's the same subject matter. But lawyering is not like that. So we have that list, and it is on our website somewhere, but I can't find it right now. So once I find it, since I believe we posted it yesterday, I will post a link to it in the Facebook group. So you all can start looking for copies of those books. They're available at the KU bookstore, but also a lot of online sites will have them, especially if it's a book that's been out a little bit, you can find them used as well. So once I'm able to find that link while I'm not on the Zoom call, then I will do that and send it out to everyone.
Bree, I see a question came in about the mandatory COVID testing for students and staff before they arrive on campus. So we just learned of that new protocol as you did, and I have not yet been informed of how they're going to execute that plan. So I assume that the university will be in regular contact with us about how that will move forward, and we will share that information with you as soon as we become aware of what the plan is. As you all can imagine, there's just a lot of moving parts right now. A lot of things are coming together at the sort of last minute, and we're just going to have to be patient because there are so many moving parts. But we'll communicate with you as best we can.
I feel like everything just keeps changing. We've been planning and planning and planning, but every time we plan, something changes. The cases have gone up so much that all of a sudden all the plans a month ago, so it doesn't seem last minute. It feels like we've been working on this forever. But the situation in our communities keeps changing, and therein lies the difficulty. Mm-hmm. And we will be a big community within the community once everyone gets here. So,
yeah, this whole thing this whole thing has been like a really great exercise in getting comfortable with uncertainty. Which is really challenging, especially for type A people who are planners and are really used to being in control, and everything is supposed to go the way it's supposed to go. So that's been a really hard exercise for all the faculty and staff that are sort of managing these changes. And I know it has been for our students that are returning as well as our admitted students. But I would just say that it's really good for resilience, which is a great skill and quality that you'll need as an attorney. And so gaining a little bit of flexibility around your expectations is going to be just a necessary skill in managing the pandemic and how law school is during it. Just know that there will always be certain things that are certain, and many of those things will come from folks like these that are on the call, your faculty and your support staff, who will be able to hold you accountable, and you will be able to hold them accountable for what they bring. And those are the things that ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to be a lawyer, no matter how you get there and what that looks like exactly. And we're all trying to have a little flexibility around that, but it is hard for us.
Usually in boot camp, right, we're talking about getting used to the uncertainty of a legal question, that you have to get used to not knowing the answer to a legal question, because there are sort of a range of answers that are reasonable oftentimes when you take the law and apply it to a new set of facts and try to predict an outcome. So, you know, you're getting a little early practice. There'll just be a little more uncertainty and a lot of other things. But at least I know for us, and I don't want to talk for Professor Rosenberg, Professor Watts, I mean, for us, it's just about thinking the material and what we want to teach you and what our goals are certain. What we know you need when you're finished is certain. It's just the transition really is in the mode of delivery and how we get it to you all the time. Just to share, I think we all have some really good stories about the spring, and you know, one of my best stories for me was watching students transition from doing oral arguments in person to online within 2 weeks. And we did that in lawyering skills and also in moot court. And it was a great success story, I think. And we were able to tell students, you're now on the cutting edge of having done something that no other lawyers have done. So when you get out there this summer, you're actually an expert. And I was able to see in my judicial fields placement this summer that students were treated as experts in that way, because they were ahead in using the technology. They were ahead even just from having to have experienced communicating online through law school classes or doing oral arguments through lawyering skills. They already had an experience that some lawyers didn't have. So, you know, with the uncertainty comes some wonderful positives, and that's just the way we'll have to look at it, right, Dean Terranova?
Yes.
I mean, I think it's real, you know, like Professor Keller was talking really early on about how lawyers solve problems for their clients, right? Like that's why they hire us. They hire us to take on a problem that has some kind of legal aspect to it. And then we use our skills and expertise and our good judgment to make a prediction, manage the risk, find a solution. There's a huge amount of creativity in that process. And I don't know that we talk very much about lawyers and creativity, but something that has emerged from the pandemic response that I've been really proud of the profession by and large is a huge amount of creativity in figuring out how to keep essential legal services and parts of our justice system functioning. And so law professors and law students nationwide, you know, pivoted to online in like a week. And lawyers figured out how to do their work, you know, how to take testimony and how to collaborate with their colleagues online with, you know, safely, but like without getting exposed to illness. Courts are enormous systems. So it's like moving a building, right? Like you try to get a court to do a thing differently from the way it normally does the thing. It's like trying to move a skyscraper, but they did it. Like they and they're still figuring it out, right? They're still figuring out like, okay, how can we have jury trials without making everyone in the community sick? Like, how are we going to do that? Lawyers sprang into action to try to get community releases for vulnerable prisoners who would be at very high risk of getting COVID if they had to stay in jail. So there are some pockets of the profession that adjusted better than others, but like by and large, right? Like it's been actually really inspiring for me as a lawyer to look at that and go, man, you know, people are trying to adapt. And so for me, that has become the inspiration. I'm like, all right, I believe legal education is essential. I believe that what you all are doing to become lawyers is essential. You're going to be part of the legal system. How can we keep this going safely, right? How can we keep it going even when there's a pandemic raging outside? Like, we're going to figure it out.
And I think it's important to note too is that coming in at the time that you are coming in, you all will be experts at being able to do these things by Zoom if there's like a meeting. And I think that the profession generally, we're figuring out all of the things that I think there's like coffee mugs that say this meeting could have been an email, those types of things for the future. So although some of the things that we are doing right now, like this meeting right now is a Zoom call, but I think that this will linger on in the profession now that lawyers have realized that they don't have to meet in person for everything. And you're getting that early on through all of the Tuesday talks. I think it's now we're all better at knowing if we're muted or not. Sometimes, some days are better than others, but so it's an interesting time to come in, and I think it will really benefit everyone personally. So, the only other things that I have are tips to succeed as a 1L and wellness tips for mental health success. If you all want to give one tip that you have just to put you directly on the spot.
One. Oh my gosh.
Okay, maybe Leah can do more than one.
All right, I'll let everyone else go
It's
first.
like asking Leah to choose her favorite child.
She has
I
a
know,
chart.
come on. There's so many things. All right. I will go first, but I will try and be brief. Well, I would just say that, that uncertainty that we spoke about before, that is building resilience in us and we need to sort of come around to and be flexible with, is also really hard on mental health, right? To live in a perpetual state of uncertainty is taxing. And you couple that with starting law school and other stresses that are going on in your lives and your personal lives that are related to the pandemic. And I know that can be really challenging and those things can snowball. So first, I would ask that you remember that you are in a community now of people that care for each other, right? So there are supports around you that have been purposefully placed there. And you'll find them in your faculty, you'll find them in staff people that you meet with, like Bree, who bring you into the fold. And I will certainly be there as well to offer support. And in my experience, in my personal experience as well, it's not a matter of if you'll need help at some point, but when you'll need help. And so there's no shame in asking for that help, right? You are a part of the Greenhall family now. And so there needs to be a certain level of vulnerability that we encourage in you to ask for the things that you need to succeed, because our goal, our communal goal, is to help you succeed and to give you the things that you need to do. And we expect that you will rise up and do everything that you're capable of to do your best work here as well. So getting over that unwillingness to ask for help is something that I would ask of each of you. You will be asked for help at some point, and you will probably need to ask for help, and those are both okay. And the other thing I would say regarding wellness is, like, don't abandon the things and the people that you love in your life right now. They're a part of your joy, they're a part of your identity, and they should continue to be so even when you're in law school. And law school does have this way of kind of taking over your life. You adopt this community brain when you come through the doors, and a lot of times you abandon many of the things that you used to love doing, or the people you spend time with, or even the values that you have, the individual intrinsic values that you have. And it's really important to remember to hold on to all of those things. Just because you're a law student doesn't mean you have lost all of those beautiful individual traits and values that you had before you came here. So really make a point to identify those things that bring you joy and the people that bring you joy and your reasons for coming here in the first place, and try and hold on to them and make them a continuous part of your law student identity as you go through law school.
I'll give one, which is to say one of the really, I think, comforting things about legal writing is that there's a formula to it. We will give you the formula. We won't make you guess, right? So we'll give you exactly what you need to get it. I think early on, students want to distinguish themselves, so they focus on being smart or clever. And just trust us. We believe you're all smart. We believe you're all clever. We trust in Bree. She wouldn't have let you in if you weren't.
Not just me.
So in the beginning, focus on getting the formula, because the students who I would say do the best, at least in lawyering for me, are the ones who do their very best early on to take what they're given and do it exactly that way. The brilliance will come through later on. The substance will get better as you get more facile with the technique, but the formatting. But just work on the technique in the beginning and save the kind of smartness for a little bit later in the semester. Probably 2/3 of the way through, once we start working on the paper that you're going to turn in for your big final, that's when we're going to want to see a little bit more of that. But for me early on, I really, really focus on getting that technique down, because once you get that technique down, you'll be so much more free to your both mental and emotional space will be freed up to really use your brain power at that point.
Yeah, I would definitely add to that. Like, it's interesting how you both started with those points, because I think that you do have to, I was going to be much simpler and just say, come to the law school and be ready to sort of treat it as a kind of a disciplined job, that you're willing to give it, the 8 or 9 hours a day, basically. And that to me actually has been kind of a comfort in the pandemic, that there is a structure. And I mean, a lot of times for law students, when you get into law school, it's hard, because it's hard to devote that much time to your studies in an intense way that law school demands, and that's a transition for people. But in this environment, it can be sort of comforting, especially when you get to do it in a new community. And as Professor Watts just said, in a community where we all think you're going to be wonderful, brilliant, smart, talented lawyers, or we wouldn't have let you in. I mean, everyone at KU, we believe, will succeed, and it's our job to get you there. And of course, your job to do your part to get you there too. But I thought that what I want to add now, based on what everyone has said, is it is really interesting. We want you to open your mind and sort of accept that we're going to give you this little formula about how to think like a lawyer, and it's very basic. And you're going to say, well, I have a PhD in this, and I've studied this, and why are you breaking this down so simply? And we want you to just sort of accept that thinking process at kind of what seems like a formulaic level, because if you do, then over time, you will, once you master that, you then get to adapt it, and you get to apply your values, you get to apply your creativity, you get to apply your analysis to how you think about the law sort of later on. So we don't want you to lose all the values that you bring, because there will be differences in our community in terms of how people see the world, what their value systems are. And the exciting part about law school is we get to talk about all that. But there are these things, these rigid formulas at the beginning that we ask you to sort of accept, and then we build on them. But it doesn't mean that we're asking you to think of life simply. Your life should be rich. It should be full of joy. But after you've studied and after you've done all these things that you have to do for your class, and finding that balance, it's a lot, but we know you can do it, and we want you to, and we'll help you, as Dean Terranova said. We know there's enough time to give that intense commitment to the study of the law, and also then find time for your own wellness, and to get to know the community and find support in our law school community, because we're a pretty good community.
And
my wellness tip is, there are lots, right? But my big one, and again, I am the mother of 3 teenagers, is take care of your body. And that means, and I'm not even kidding, make sure you're eating healthy food, make sure you're getting plenty of sleep, make sure you're getting enough exercise, make sure you're not drinking too much, right? Like all that you can't have a healthy mind if you don't have a healthy body, and it'll just all break down.
I love that tip. That is so important. And it's like the first thing to go when people start, they stop sleeping, they stop eating well, they just kind of stop taking care of their bodies and their minds and their
drinking way too much because of
coffee's
stress.
okay,
It's like
right?
bad for you.
Coffee's fantastic.
At 3 o'clock is still okay. Okay, just making sure.
Drinking too much alcohol.
Okay, that's what you're referring to. Okay.
You will hear during orientation quite a bit about alcohol abuse in the legal profession, in law school. It tends to be the go-to thing to let off steam, which is in almost all cases a really bad idea for you personally, for you professionally, certainly for you academically. And it's something that you'll hear from us quite often because it's that big of a problem in the legal profession. So we're really attuned to the risks, and we want to make sure that you are really well educated about those risks as well. Having said that, there are a lot of supports in place. So we work with organizations that provide counseling and confidential support to students that might have substance or drug abuse conditions. And I certainly serve as a resource as well to students who need to be connected to any on or off-campus resources for help. But I will say, and this is an answer to Jaden's question that came up about how do we build community when we're grappling with the limitations of the pandemic. And we are trying to be really creative. This is where our creative skills come in, to find ways to build social opportunities for you, not only to connect with one another and to get to know one another, but also to connect with upperclassmen. I will say that the thing I keep hearing over and over again from the upperclassmen is that when they were 1Ls, having those meaningful connections with upperclassmen was so important to their confidence, their success, and their sense of belonging in the building. So we are going to be organizing some virtual student organization fairs for you all to get to meet some of the student org presidents, and we'll send you information about that in the coming weeks. We're also going to be organizing a 3-to-1 mentor program where 3Ls get paired with 1Ls, and we're going to be doing some fun social games online, just to bring people together in relatively small groups, so that they really have a chance to get to know each other, feel comfortable, so that you're not in a Zoom room with 100 people where it's really hard to get to know people. And to the extent that folks are comfortable doing this, I think we'd also like to do some in-person social events during orientation week. So I'm sort of like on the social chair or the social committee, and we'll be working with the Dean's Fellows, who are the upper class students who are there to mentor you during your 1L year, and working with them to create some social events for you that are socially distanced and safe and outside, but we'll still give you a chance to get to know each other personally. So that is front of mind for us, how we can build community for you, give you a real sense of place and belonging in the building and with one another. We know that that's really important to your experience as a law student. So we're working on that, and we'll work on it with you. And if you have ideas for things you want to do to be really effective to connect, please reach out to me. I would love to facilitate any of those requests. So open door, email me. I'll drop my name into the chat, or my email into the chat.
Right. And that's exactly what I was going to say. If you have any ideas, please let us know, because there's so much technology out there now, and there's so many neat socially distanced games and things like that. And there's only so many of us. So collective minds come up with better ideas. So if anyone has any ideas for that, please let us know. But we are very focused on making sure you all know each other, because I think that's very important. And I was going to mention this, but it also goes to, and I know we're very over on time, so if you have to go, just please don't feel like you're
Professor Watts wanted to say goodbye. He got cut off, and then since the time was running, but he, I know, would want to say goodbye.
Some of the events that we're going to be doing will be easier if it's like a camera on event so people can see your face. So I think that, and Leah, correct me if I'm wrong, but that goes into the technology. If you're having difficulty figuring out a way to be visible to people, monetarily wise, please let us know, so we can help you with that. If you need a webcam or something like that, let us know.
I think that's important.
Yes.
Yeah, we have funds specifically earmarked for supporting students who are facing difficult circumstances right now, especially due to COVID-19. So again, don't be shy about asking for help. You're a part of our family now.
I would also say too, just traditionally, the biggest impact in the first year program, even going back from when Professor Rosenberg and I went to school at KU, is the small section program. And I know we've touted that if you've come to admissions events before, but whether we're online or in person, I mean, in person will make it obviously much easier, you know, but if something changes and it gets even less in person, but that I have no doubt that we will still be able to build those connections through our smaller section program, just because you will be in a class, 2 small classes at least, and so there will be, you know, I don't worry at all about being able to interact with those folks in a way, even given the pandemic, that would be similar enough, you know, to traditionally, especially with the support that Dean Terranova and Brianna is putting towards giving, you know, making more connections digitally, but they're just by virtue of how we'll teach it and the kind of work we'll ask you to do with each other, and then for the, you know, in-person time we will have, you will connect with that small group, you know, pretty easily, and then, you know, we'll just build from there, and especially if we start, you know, connecting you with mentor events with older students. But there's a lot of impact. Some of my closest friends still are folks who were in my small section. So that traditionally has been the way, and you know, that will also, I think, you know, continue just by virtue of how we're dividing everybody up and how we'll be teaching.
Because even if conditions change and we have to all be remote only for safety, you're still going to see everybody, you know, you're still going to be talking to everybody and seeing each other's faces in a Zoom class like this, or in a Teams class. You're still going to have breakout rooms with a few people to talk about course topics. You're still going to be able to have, and I encourage you, when school starts to have like study groups where you can meet online and similar thing. But that's why like camera on is so important, because it is harder. It's not possible, but it's much harder to make a connection with somebody you've never seen. Whereas the video chat facilitates that a little easier, I think. But I mean, I'm pretty confident that once classes get going and everybody's busy and everybody's working on the same things, whether you're in person or in a virtual space, you're going to be able to have meaningful interactions with your classmates.
Okay. This has been good, I think. Does anyone have any other questions? I know that there's a lot of information, and I always feel bad because we're like, yay, we're so excited for you to get here, but we also don't have exact schedules for you. And there was a question about a specific timeline. I think the last timeline we got was around August 3rd. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what Dean Friedman put in the Facebook group the other day. So that's what we're looking at. Yes, Leah?
I think August 3rd is the date that the registrar will release the final class schedule to all university students, including the law students. So it should be shortly after that, I would imagine.
But you will continue to get updates from us. As we get them, we will pass them along to you. And then also just some programming notes. Next week, next Tuesday, is the Nuts and Bolts Tuesday talk, which Dean Friedman is going to administer. So he came up with the title. But it's about parking, the Watkins Health Center, and the KU Rec Center. So representatives from those 3 centers will be on the Zoom call, so you can ask them questions that you have about that. I know there have been a lot of questions about parking. The parking website currently states that they will be able to have permits and things like that around that August 3rd date. But if you sign on next week, then you can ask them too in person, but that's the information that we have. And then the week after that is another Dean's Roundtable with Dean Mazza, and that will be August 4th. And so hopefully by then we're going to be able to give you pretty concrete information, because that's about 15 days before orientation. And then one that's really exciting is August 11th, and all of this is on the website, and we will post reminders. Meet your other 1L professors. So yeah, very exciting.
Thanks for doing this, Bree.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. And as
Good
always,
to
if you
see all of you.
I know.
Good to
Let
meet
us know
some
if
of
you have
you.
any questions, but thank you.
Okay.
Awesome.
Bye.